of the minimum wage. Shocking.
Does it happen under this government?
Jan Logie.
I'm pleased tonight to speak on behalf of Denise Roche, our Industrial Relations spokesperson. And the Green Party opposes this amendment bill in its entirety. In standing to speak for the Greens on this bill, I'd like to recognise the work that's been done by my colleagues Keith Locke and Dave Clendon. When this bill went through its first reading, the Greens supported it. But Keith Locke did outline concerns with the bill, and Dave Clendon outlined them again last time this bill was in the House. Those concerns have not been addressed, and actually now we have more concerns about the bill, so we will be opposing it. And to be honest, I can't believe this House has actually wasted so much time and resources, staff time, politicians' time, time in the House and its select committee, when more useful debates could have been had over an amendment bill which is, in effect, a solution looking for a problem. I'm not sure what on earth possessed my esteemed colleague, Tau Henare, to develop such a bill when it's so completely and utterly unnecessary. It is some time since my esteemed colleague was a union official for the Clerical Workers Union, and undoubtedly times have moved on in the last 2 decades. Modern unions are now democratic. Members, rather than union officials, make the decisions around settling negotiations and also about how the whole union is run. From having been a member of a union for many, many years, I can vouch for this. Unions, I'm not an organiser, a member. Unions are incorporated societies. They are required to act in an openly transparent and democratic fashion. Many unions already have rules that include the requirement for secret ballots on industrial disputes. What is the point in legislating to ensure a current practice becomes a current practice? The decision to take industrial action is not one that unions or their members ever take lightly. For the union, if the strike is not widely supported or if there's anything dodgy about the vote on it, they're likely to lose members. Unlike the industrial relations environment that existed when my esteemed colleague Tau Henare was a union organiser in the early 80s, union membership is now voluntary. And frankly, in an environment of shrinking union membership in the private sector particularly, no union with sane leadership is going to take the risk of acting undemocratically. From the workers' perspective, the decision to strike is also never made lightly. Strike action means loss of pay, and in an increasingly desperate job market, thanks to this government, it's a huge risk to take strike action because of the potential ongoing damage to the employment relationship. Strike action is an action of last resort, and aside from health and safety reasons, it is only used when negotiations around the collective employment agreements have not settled. And I join Labour in expressing my satisfaction in seeing the ports of Auckland go back into negotiations, as you know, which we have seen at the end of a process of striking. It's really the only weapon in the struggle that can sometimes result from the imbalance of power between workers and the boss, and it's never undertaken on the whim or with a dodgy vote. Some of my colleagues recently spent the weekend at the picket of the Maritime Workers Union members and their families at the ports of Auckland. And they've been negotiating since September last year. Despite offering to make significant changes to provide more flexibility, including a 12-hour shift option for some workers, they've been stalled by the management's demands for more and more and more flexibility. These workers, all 300 or so of them, had a vote. And recently I joined the striking workers at Eldersley Rest Home in Upper Hutt. And I know it takes a lot to get nurses and rest home workers to strike because they care for their elderly clients and they don't want to jeopardise their well-being. 1,500 of them went off the job at Oceania rest homes all over the country. These workers are asking for a cost of living pay claim of around 3% with back pay. The company, which is controlled by Australian equity firm Macquarie Global Infrastructure Fund and currently spending millions on new facilities, is offering them 1% over 3 years. and want to cut overtime. These workers have been negotiating for 8 months. 600 of those workers are on Mr. Chair.
Jan Logie.
Thank you. Are on $13.61 an hour, just above the minimum wage, caring for some of our most vulnerable people. This is not about workers being greedy or unions being unscrupulous. It's about a decent living wage. And it's also about employer bullying. It's about employers seeking to bust the unions and achieve full flexibility, aka casualisation of the workforce. I note that this bill does not address the issue of whether the employer should have a secret ballot or even a transparent voting process before they decide to lock out workers. It's fine for the workers, but not for the bosses. 762 meat workers in the provincial towns of Morewa, Manawatu, Imlay, Horotui and Wairoa, the AFCO meat workers, have been locked out of their jobs. Like the Ports of Auckland workers, they've been fending off the boss's claims for more and more flexibility around rosterings. The meat workers and AFCO, Tully's management have been negotiating their employment agreements for 18 months. The lockout is an employer tactic to get them to agree. Why is there no bill requiring companies to hold a secret ballot before locking out workers?
Why don't you bring one?
We will not be voting for this bill. This bill does nothing to address bad faith bargaining. In fact, it's dangerous. It opens a loophole for employers to litigate unions over ballots. This bill does not serve unions, who are the only collective voice for many people, and it does not serve industrial democracy, and it does not serve workers.
The question is that Darian Fenton's typescript amendment... Oh, sorry. Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr. Chairman,